Travel with Charles Price as he takes living truth on location to Africa. Orphans, widows, the sick, and the very poor find new life and hope through life centers. Join us as we go back to Africa.
Hello, I'm Charles Price. Now, I'd like to welcome you to the last of our 3 mission outreach programs. Today, we're broadcasting from Malawi in southern Africa. And I'm eager to tell you about the work that is going on here with orphans and widows affected by the HIV/AIDS pandemic. During most of the year, our programs, of course, consist of biblical teaching. Our focus is spiritual nourishment from the Word of God. But each year, we like to take 3 programs and extend our vision beyond our own borders. We partner with Christian organizations doing evangelistic and humanitarian work, and we give you the opportunity to invest financially in the work that we're going to be telling you about. Here in Africa, we have found some remarkable grassroots organizations fighting poverty and AIDS. We introduced them to you last year, and we've come back this year because we felt their work was good and fruitful and effective. Last year, many of you responded generously to our call for financial contributions to the work going on in Malawi, specifically to build life centers. These life centers are fairly simple community buildings where many services are offered to help orphans, vulnerable children and widows affected by AIDS. And it's all done through the local churches. Thank you so much for your wonderful support in the past. And today on this program, we'll show you how your donations are already being used. Lives are being transformed, physically and spiritually, and it's with your help. Later on, we'll give you an opportunity to continue your support, because we know there is still so much more that needs to be done. So stay with us to see what God is doing with your financial help and prayer. Come with us back to Africa. In the next hour, you'll see stories that truly are heartbreaking. But you'll also see stories that are inspiring and show us that God is at work in Africa. The situation may seem desperate, but it's not hopeless. There is hope because of organizations like Somebody Cares. Its founder, Teresa Malila, is a dynamic Christian woman who started Somebody Cares just 5 years ago to help fight poverty and AIDS here in Malawi through local church communities.
I know it was a definite calling from the Lord, and I know because he spoke to me over a 3-year period, even giving me the name of the ministry, which was Somebody Cares. Yes, all I had was my Bible and a bottle of oil. So I just used to walk into communities and just pray for the dying and encourage them, talk to them about Jesus, and that's all I did.
Teresa's work quickly grew as others came alongside. She trained volunteers to go out into the community. They helped people who were too ill with AIDS to care for their own children. Teresa's open heart allowed her to hear and obey God's voice. Those who were forgotten and in need now had somebody who came alongside and really cared. But she soon realized that if she wanted to make a lasting change, she would need to get all the help she could from the local African churches.
When we went into the church, we started evangelizing the church. We started talking openly about HIV/AIDS, the cause, and how to deal with the widow and the orphan, and how to deal with people. You know, it's in the Word. So we turned back to the gospel, the real gospel of Jesus Christ, and what it says.
Amen. Amen. Church leaders caught Teresa's vision. And so, with a biblical mandate and a committed group of volunteers recruited from churches of all denominations, Somebody Cares began to expand. Just recently, a volunteer found 13-year-old Stella and her sister Maggie all alone. They were traumatized because just a few weeks ago, their mother had died of AIDS. This is a difficult story to tell, but we cannot turn away from the suffering that Stella, Maggie, and countless other young children like them are facing.
Mngona is one of the poorest urban centers in Malawi. It isn't far from the country's capital, Lilongwe. People leave their home villages and settle here, drawn by the hope of work. More than 40,000 people are crowded into Mngona now, and roughly half of them are orphans. Stella says she is 14, but looks much younger, probably due to poor nutrition. Her sister Maggie is 12.
Stella, do you remember your father?
Stella,
their father, like many others here, was afflicted by AIDS. Their mother got sick a few years later. It forced the girls apart. To pay for her mother's medications, Maggie was compelled to work for a local chief. She looked after their baby. Stella stayed home to care for her mother. Many children are pushed into the same situation, forced to become child nurses, feeding and cleaning desperately ill parents.
Stella, what happened the day your mother died? And how did you feel that day?
Their mother's death was devastating, but it brought the girls back together. Maggie was no longer obligated to pay for her mother's medications. She ran away from the chief's house where she worked. She says she was abused by the family. An extended relative took the sisters in. They call her Gogo, or grandmother. She cuts grass for thatching roofs and sells it. But she earns barely enough money to feed herself, let alone two young girls. Today, the sisters got some help from an outreach worker to buy food. Other days, there is nothing to eat. If a life center is built in this part of Mngona, it would ensure these sisters and their guardian receive food parcels and regular meals. the girls could go back to school. Best of all, a life center would provide a sense of family, of community, to give these children and other orphans the support they need.
We've just heard the story of these two young girls, Stella and Maggie, having lost their mother and all the circumstances that throws them into. Last year we told you another story of a girl similar age called Chakutera. Chakutera had lost her parents and she was living alone in a hut all by herself with all the dangers and vulnerability of that. As a result, many of you Living Truth viewers sent in money that enabled Somebody Cares to begin to build a life center in her village. And I want you to come with me and see how she's doing 1 year later.
Last year, Living Truth found Chakutera, a 14-year-old orphan. She was left to fend for herself after her parents and siblings died of AIDS. The disease scares people here. They are afraid of catching it. So the young orphan was cast out, forced to live alone in a small hut.
My fear is, there's no door here. Anybody can break in and they can rape her, or they can bribe her with money so that she can get food for the next day. And she may give in. And that is my fear.
Chakutera survived by doing chores for a handful of food. Despite her poverty, she inspired viewers with her deep faith.
Do you trust this God to look after you?
The name Chakutera means, it is finished. Without help, that might have been her fate. Then Living Truth told her story, and viewers responded.
Many people saw your picture in Canada and America, and they saw your picture and they wanted to help.
Hundreds of people sent donations. Donations that are helping Teresa Malila build a better life for children in Malawi. She runs an organization called Somebody Cares. Her first goal was to find Chakutera a safe home. She combed the district looking for distant relatives and found a young family.
We discovered that there is an extended member of the family, but they couldn't take her because they didn't have the resources to keep her. And as a newly married person, the husband comes from a different area. It's difficult to say I'm bringing in somebody, especially if it's an extended member from the woman's side and not the man's side. It's really difficult. So I think it's just the grace of God that she has someone who reached out to keep her.
Somebody Cares provides food parcels and other supplies for Chakutera. With that support, the relatives could afford to take her in.
We support her on a monthly basis. She gets her food package, she gets her uniform, she gets her school supplies, and soap and candles, everything she needs. And so it helps the family too.
Last year, Chakutera, you lived alone in a little hut with no means of locking the door. What is it like to live now with your relatives and their little baby? What does the difference feel like?
The intervention by Somebody Cares has literally saved Chakutera's life. She has gone from barely surviving to a comfortable home and regular meals.
How often do you eat now?
So 3 times a day.
3 times a day. And how often did you eat a year ago?
I didn't tell you that I was away when I do my batali. Zinali chonchodi? So here and there she had a meal, but most of the time she didn't have a meal.
Chakotera is also in school. She couldn't go before. There was no one to fill out the paperwork on her behalf. But with the support of Somebody Cares, she's back in class. Math is her favorite subject.
Do you have dreams and plans and thoughts?
Madam. Yeah. She wants to be a madam. It's the teacher. It's what they call teachers here, madam.
Yeah. You told me that last year. You'd like to be a teacher one day. That's good.
She says she knows it can happen now because she has seen the goodness of her future in her face. She sees it. So she knows she will achieve it.
Thanks to viewers of Living Truth, Chakotera has a safe place to live, regular meals, and education. Before, she was stigmatized, forced to the sidelines of her community. Now she is accepted by other children. She has a new status and a new confidence. Having an adult watching over her, looking out for her, makes all the difference. Chakotera has escaped a poverty that grips thousands of children here in Malawi. Like her, many have lost their parents to AIDS. Others are suffering from hunger due to poor crops and drought. Somebody Cares has taken Chakotera out of that world and into this one.
Panova. Zibwina sandigale, mori ni mataboza, zambu ya mandigonda, ani wetla wantu jawa weluno, uzaya ngenene wo. Debo nabani mataboza wambili.
Chakotera's faith kept her going when she was alone and hungry. Viewers of Living Truth have given her a new life. A life where she is free to have fun, free to be a child again.
Last year, we asked you to come alongside children like Chakotera and to help us help the local Christians in this community to help children like her. And we asked you to help us build life centers. 2 are being built in Malawi as a result of your generosity, others in Zimbabwe, in Mozambique, and in South Africa. And we're walking alongside the Christian leaders in these countries as they help to minister to people like this in need. And I can't tell you how deeply grateful the people in Malawi are for the help, the compassion, and the generosity that so many of you showed last year. And we trust that many again will show again this year, because there are many more children like Chakotera. And we have a responsibility, because we know about them, to help them and to minister to them physically, practically, and spiritually, that these folks may come to know Christ and may grow up in a wholesome, secure environment.
Today, we are asking you to partner with us by giving a financial and prayer commitment. With your help, we will act on the biblical imperative to help orphans, widows, and the poor. The need is urgent. The quickest way to help is to call now at 1-888-269-6085 and make a donation with your credit card. Staff are standing by to receive your calls, and lines will remain open after this broadcast. You can also go online and donate at livingtruth.ca or send a check to Living Truth, P.O. Box 6100, Station B, Toronto, Ontario, M2K 2Z5. Consider investing $20, $200, $2,000, or even more to enable us to build and operate life centers in communities affected by HIV and AIDS. Your commitment does make a difference.
Ntchito ndinzona anthawi imeneyoyo inkavuta koma masiku ano tikuona ngati kuti zikuyenda bwino chifukwa tikulumikizana kwambiri chifukwa cha utumiki umene udabwerapo tsopano wasambolekeya ndimene watipangitsa kumanga umodzi.
Nthawi imeneyo chifukwa pa tsiku timakhala ndi maliro 10, 8 every day. Now timatha mwina after 3 weeks no maliro. Ndiye pano pati kuziti improve ilipo kwambiri kusintha kulipo chifukwa cha sambolekeya kuzolera mutumiki wa amayi athu amayi malira.
Last year, we asked you to help us build life centers here in Malawi, and you responded tremendously. And right behind me is the beginnings of laying the foundations in order to build a life center here in this particular community. It'll be manned entirely by local people, organized by the local churches, as they are themselves doing the building of this life center. And we're delighted to be able to show you the beginnings of a new center that you, viewers of Living Truth, have made possible. We're in the village of Ngwangwa, and I'm here with Teresa, who is the lady who really is the motivator of so much of what is going on here. And Teresa, tell me what is happening immediately behind me.
Well, this was a church where the children had the feeding program before. And so the pastor of this church said we could demolish the church since we are building the center, and he would also preach on Sundays from the center. But obviously you could see how small it was. Only a few children could get into this, and they have over 350 children to fit into a life center.
It looks about 1/10 of the size of the new center that's going up.
That's definitely 1/10 of the size, because only about 50 children could go in there, and this village is very big.
And what these guys are doing is cleaning off the mortar from the bricks so they can reuse some of these bricks.
Some of the bricks.
And they're making new ones further back.
Yes, that's what's happening there, and most of the program is being done through the youth program.
So it's really the young people of the church who are doing the work.
Yes.
Making the bricks, building it. I'd love to come back and see this completed one day, and it'll be in the next year, it'll be done one day.
Yes, it will be done by the end of this year. This should be up and running.
And it'll bring so much hope to this community.
It's already starting to bring hope. You can see the children are gathered here, the women are gathered here, the chiefs are gathered here. I mean, they were sitting here since early morning to watch just the digging, because for them, this is God moving on their behalf. Government couldn't, nobody could, but God has moved on their behalf through the saints at People's Church. We just bless them for this.
Teresa, we have this borehole that has been built by donations from Living Truth viewers, because this will service the Life Center. How significant is this fresh water in this community?
It's very significant because, you know, people have been getting waterborne diseases, and children have no access to clean water, bathing water, washing water. They all get it from the same river, and animals use the same river. So this is remarkable. This is living water to this center and living water to the villages here.
In our part of the world, we take for granted fresh, flowing water. This community has never had flowing water like this.
I mean, look at the color.
And
these people have never seen this color water. Fresh living water to drink and to use in their households and to use for their bodies and also for their clothing.
They're going to carry that on their head?
Yeah.
And we really don't appreciate the difference that this makes to a community. Diseases, many of which are waterborne, are eliminated. Clean clothes, because the ability to wash them more frequently means less disease as well.
But you know, the girl child and the woman, now their load is easier, because the carrying of the water is just across to the village here, where they had to go down the rivers. And sometimes during the rainy season, when the maize is high, men get hold of them. There's lots of cases of rape. So this is a lifesaver. It is living water.
Teresa, this whole area is going to be part of the Life Center. What's going to go in different places?
Well, over here you have a playground, and further down you'd have the center vegetable garden, which will be irrigated by the water from the borehole itself.
And this will provide vegetables for the feeding program?
For the feeding program. The vegetables will be planted right here.
And what's going to go over here?
There's a kitchen area where the food is going to be prepared, with a stores area. And then there's a classroom area, which is part of this, and then there's an open area. And that open area is where the children have their recreation, but also that's where the area where the widows will come and do crafts and bead making, whatever they want to learn, even adult literacy, that will be part of it. And also the pastors, the open areas where they will meet. And on Sundays in the open area, that's where they will hold church.
Here in Malawi, a life center is more than a building. It is a lifeline, a place that binds people and communities together. These women in uniform are home-based care workers. They are volunteers who work with Somebody Cares. The volunteers meet at the Life Center before going out into the community. They check in on orphans, widows, and those with AIDS. Home-based care workers are helping to look after this young girl's mother so she can go to school.
The volunteers come every day because the children go to school, just to make sure that the woman has some food to eat, she's got drink, so that Alice does not feel that she's alone, because that's when people start giving up on themselves.
At this schoolhouse, another example of how a life center and its home-based care volunteers can transform lives. Before she got help from Somebody Cares, Maria could not afford to go to school. Somebody Cares heard about her situation and paid for her uniform and supplies. Now Maria is back in class, getting an education she hopes will lift her family out of poverty.
When I finish school, I want to be a nurse, and I want to go to university, just because I want to help my sister and brother.
The same life center that helped Maria provides food for hundreds of children at risk. They receive a hot, nutritious meal each day.
Most of these children, their parents are not working, or they have one parent, or they have no parents, because these are orphans and vulnerable children that come to the center. So we give them fortified meal once a day.
When parents are sick, it used to mean there was no one to watch the children. A life center provides care for preschoolers to keep them safe. There are many ways to help those in need, but a life center is one of the best. It serves a wide range of people. At the life center, these widows have access to sewing machines. Volunteers teach them how to make clothes, helping them stitch together a new life.
Moyo waine unali wovutika isana joine wawo yi sili maziwa sokutika pena zinthu zingandisinthire imene ndakuzionera panopa ndimasowa anawo ntenderana kuti anawo ndipanga nawo bwanji imene ine ndinaline ndisanayambe nawo wawo.
Now these women have new hope. They are learning skills that generate income, making bracelets and necklaces. They bring in enough money selling clothes and jewelry to support themselves. A big part of the Life Center's work is to comfort and counsel people with AIDS. Before, victims used to hide in the shadows. Today, outreach programs are working to erase the stigma.
They meet at different times, and they go out and they sensitize the community and encourage them to come forth and declare their status, because they know that there is help.
At this meeting, organizers have advice on nutrition and local medicines.
There are two leaders that are describing each fruit or herb or spice or soya that they can use, and she explains it to them, and they ask questions like if they've got herpes on their skin, what they can use to protect their skin, what they can drink.
A life center is more than a building. It keeps Maria in school and fills these cups with food. It teaches people with AIDS not to be afraid. It gives widows who have lost so much a new dignity. For a community torn apart by poverty and disease, a life center is a new beginning.
On these visits to Africa, I've been so glad to see the spiritual growth in villages where somebody cares is involved. Teresa Malila comes to a community with her Bible teaching and vision. She stirs up the churches to be beacons of hope for people suffering from AIDS. Previously, churches shunned people who had this dreaded disease. But when people really care for each other, it opens the way for spiritual transformation. That's what happened in the village of Nadzalua.
The young people in the village of Nadzalua have a story to tell. It's a story about helping others in need. It's a story about spiritual revival. Ezekiel Makwenda is the school teacher and pastor in this village. He saw children alone and in need, victims of the AIDS pandemic. He and other young leaders decided to do something about it.
We went to the chiefs and talked to them to say we have received this liberation to help the widows and the orphans. So the chiefs gave us their hand of support to say go ahead.
So in 2007.
The group prepared food for the poor in their village. The next step was to grow maize and soybeans to feed the orphans and widows. The group worked hard and had a big harvest, but there was still more to do. The number of children coming for help grew and grew, and they needed more than just food. They needed education.
Calendar, I know calendar. January, April, March, April, May.
Then, the youth planned to reach their own age group.
We came up with another vision that we have to teach our youth that there is HIV/AIDS in this world. So we taught them this lesson that they should stop this pandemic so that we no longer have more children who are orphans.
Achinyamata timaphunzitsa makamaka kuwalimbikitsa mmene akhoza kumvera AIDS komanso mmene akhoza kukhalira mmoyo wawo achinyamata.
And that's when Ezekiel and his friends learned about Somebody Cares.
Our thought was not to go and beg, but we wanted people who can help us, to advise us and show us how to do things.
Teresa Malila, founder of Somebody Cares, came alongside the youth of Nadzalua and gave some practical help. The old uncovered well was replaced with a borehole. Now, the village had fresh, clean water. Bibles were distributed, 40 of them, and a spiritual revival began to bubble up.
Ndizoona kuti agwira ali zauthenga njoka sowa mpaipulo kumene chifukwa cha zimene taphunzirapo kunoko.
The young people of Nadzalua are the hope for the future. A whole generation has been wiped out with AIDS. But the youth of today are stepping up to become the leaders of tomorrow.
The reason why we work with you, with Somebody Cares, is because you work through the local churches and pastors. What is the spiritual impact of a life center?
Well, the spiritual impact is major, because what is going to happen here, this is going to be the life center and the light center in this community. Everything will happen in this community. Everything, the pastoral meetings, the youth meetings, the women's meeting, the children's meeting, but everything, evangelical meetings, training in pastoral and youth, discipleship, mentorship, everything is going to happen right here. So the effect is going to be major. It's going to be a tidal wave sweeping over this entire community.
There are people who come into this community from a wider area, and that raises the question, how many life centers are still needed?
Well, currently we have over 17 zones, but within those zones there are different communities. So if we maximize it, it's several. You could go over 30 or so, but if we minimize it, we'd say the need is about 16.
And that's minimal. So there are more that you could do in the course of time.
Yes, because, you know, we are affecting people's spiritual lives, and also their social lives, and also their material lives are being affected through the Life Center. It is the core, it is the heartbeat of the community right now.
We knew last year when Teresa Malila asked for 5 life centers in Malawi at a cost of $50,000 each, that she had a vision for many more. The need is much greater than 5 centers. There are so many other communities in need of help. And that's why we're coming back to you. Our goal is to expand the reach of this very practical and profoundly spiritual organization. These are tough economic times, but the Bible is full of stories which illustrate God's blessing on those who give generously to the poor. If you remember the story of the widow and her mite, Jesus said that she had given more than anybody else because she gave all that she had. I challenge you to trust God to enable you to give generously with the resources that God has given you. There are 2 new life centers under construction in Malawi alone. And this year, over the course of our 3 programs, we'd like to raise enough money to build additional life centers and finance the running of the programs from them. That will cost around $50,000 each. We know this is a major undertaking, but we believe it's important to be faithful to those who are in need. Many of you responded marvelously last year, and so we believe it's good to consolidate on the work we were able to do then. We also believe that one of the greatest privileges of the Christian life is the opportunity that you and I have to financially invest in God's ministry right across the world. As you've seen in this program, Somebody Cares truly brings transformation to many lives.
Today, we are asking you to partner with us by giving a financial and prayer commitment. With your help, we will act on the biblical imperative to help orphans, widows, and the poor. The need is urgent. The quickest way to help is to call now at 1-888-269-6085 and make a donation with your credit card. Staff are standing by to receive your calls, and lines will remain open after this broadcast. You can also go online and donate at livingtruth.ca or send a check to Living Truth, P.O. Box 6100, Station B, Toronto, Ontario, M2K 2Z5. Consider investing $20, $200, $2,000, or even more to enable us to build and operate life centers in communities affected by HIV and AIDS. Your commitment does make a difference.
Kwambira nditayesedwa ndinayeninka kuti ndikhoza kumwalira kwa chimene ndachita ndinawepulika moyo wanga m'manja mwa Yesu Khristu ndatero andithandize ndikundisungabe ngati kungatheke. Ndinapereka moyo wanga kwa Yesu kuti andisunge kwa ndinayeninka kuti ndikhoza kumwalira ndibe masiku ambiri kusowa moyo wanga pandikuona kuti Ambuye anandithandiza ndini moyobe pana pale panopa ndi papeso amene abwera ndi amayiwa timatha kupalimbikitsidwa nawo.
Hayi panopa zinthu zandisinthira mwene ndekhaso sili maziwa kuti ndingaziwe zinthu zimene ndapeza ine panopa. Pano ndikuphunzira kusoka ananga ndimasokera, ndinaphunzira kuluka majujen majuzi, ndinaphunzira kuphika madonasi, ndinaphunzira kuluka mikanda, ndinaphunzira kupanga soko, ndinaphunzira kupanga salu kumadaya nkumagulisa ndikumapeza ndirama ine ndi ananga pakhomo nkumatani ndikumasangalala.
I'm sitting here with Melita Kaponda, who's a lady who was born in 1912. That means she's 97 years old. And she is caring for 3 great-grandchildren. Her children and her grandchildren have died of AIDS. One of the great-grandchildren is HIV positive. And until 5 years ago, she used to walk 30 kilometers to earn money to provide food for these great-grandchildren. Now she hasn't the strength to do that. And yet she's the sole carer of these great-grandchildren. And I want to talk to her and find out how she faces life every day.
It looks like Melita has food to prepare. But this flour comes from the husks of corn. It's what is discarded or fed to the pigs after the nutritious parts are removed. Combine this with a few pumpkin leaves, and that is all Melita has to feed her 4 great-grandchildren.
How often do you eat? Are there times when you don't have one meal a day? What happens to the children if they don't eat for a day?
The family has almost nothing to call their own, which makes cooking very difficult. Corn stalks are burned instead of firewood. Everything from the pail to fetch water to the spoon that stirs the food are borrowed. Banana leaves serve as plates.
This is the place that Melita and her great-grandchildren sleep. That was up as a kitchen during the day. It's a very thin mat that they lay out. It's really hardly much length to it, and they all sleep on that. There's some very thin, ragged blankets over here too. When I say blankets, it's 2 of them, and 4 bowls on the floor that they use for their feeding. This is home.
The girls do some piecework, harvesting nuts. It's tough work in the hot sun with no food in their bellies, but at least they will get some of the nuts as payment. It's especially hard for Charity, who suffers from an AIDS-related cancer. There's no money for treatment. Numri, the eldest boy, tries to do some farm work, but he carries deep scars from witnessing so many deaths. He has a sense of hopelessness. The burden of providing for this family is overwhelming. He is embarrassed to be the one collecting water, a chore usually left for the young girls.
Do you believe in God? Do you feel you experience His presence in your life when times are hard and difficult?
nima muone kuti vangasalo ndisunga mtikunyama na ndine nima puluvire nditu.
Malita has been through so much difficulty. What will happen when she is no longer around to care for these children? A life center in this community would transform this family situation. The children would have school uniforms and access to basic health care. At a life center, they would receive a meal a day. Numri could begin skills training as a carpenter or a brickmaker and learn how to provide for his siblings. A life center would turn around this family's desperate situation and give them hope for a future.
Last year, we brought you the courageous story of Vadia. Let's see how her circumstances have changed since Somebody Cares has begun to work in her community.
When we met Vadia last year, she was weak in body and spirit. Her husband, children, and siblings all died of AIDS. Her 76-year-old mother took care of her because she too had AIDS. Vadia was left to care for nephews and nieces when her sister died. This is how AIDS has changed the whole idea of family in Africa. Remnants of Vadia's family clung together just to survive. Vadia's only income was selling donuts, but she was never able to make enough money to feed the children and herself. She was able to get AIDS medication from a government clinic, but without nutritious food, the medicine could not work effectively. She was getting weaker and weaker. This is Vadia today, energetic, healthy, glad to be alive, and a vibrant part of the community. Vadia is singing and dancing with the other women of the village to celebrate the building of the Life Center in Ngwangwa. The young men are making bricks and digging the foundations. The women are fetching clean water from the new borehole. The children come to share in the excitement. And now Vadia can join in. Why is her life so changed in less than a year?
Usenta wange nusianita chifuko boyamba abo ndali muntu oyonyenchera tubilanga ndali moyo oyonyenchera tubilanga aza kunje simaje moyenelela tubilanga lino koma banova nuje moyenelela.
Vadia's storage bin is now full. She's got lots of maize, the staple food here in Malawi. It comes from a community garden organized in Vadia's village for people with AIDS. Somebody Cares started the program with donations sent by Living Truth.
Mwanda wa sabori guluguri dalima kigalima idazwela ndituchimanga bano basarida kolola chimanga chakani chimene mucho navucho.
Last year, Vadia was too weak to grow her own food. But in the communal garden, she draws strength from others. It gives them all a sense of dignity and ownership. But most importantly, her body has the nutrition it requires to make the ARV medication effective. She now feels well and has regained her energy. Another change in Vadia's life is this support group for people with HIV/AIDS. Not so long ago, people were afraid to reveal their HIV status. Now, the church is teaching that it has a responsibility to take care of the sick in its communities.
Kawazatu jifolenga rima kalani nkava bankani ya malendawa nde rima tetsana nkaguru muntu azima kalani nkawa tizigula nchiro moli mbigila bwino kwa masema nkwala rizimwe mwandondomeko bwino basabari bwino batu rima vele.
Last year, Vadia used to walk 4 hours just to get to a bus where she could get a ride to town to collect her medication. Now, she's learning to ride a communal bike supplied by Somebody Cares. This will drastically cut down on the time it takes for her to fetch the vital drugs. Drugs are needed to treat AIDS, but without good food and encouragement, drugs alone will fail.
Oh, Jesus.
Last year, Charles and Teresa prayed for Vadia. This year, their prayers have been answered.
Thank you for her mother who prayed for her.
Mwe wanga nyambu Yesu wasintika kwa mbili. Chifuka kale nalosa mudzi wa Ambuye. Koma pano panida mudzi wa Ambuye nchifukwa chake nukhala kavina kamutamanda Mulungu wanga chifukwa nili ndi mphamvu.
As Christians, we are to bring justice and righteousness to our world. One way we can do that is to care for those in need, whether they live in the next house or the next neighborhood or on another continent. And we can help this organization, Somebody Cares, bring justice and righteousness to Malawi by supporting their work financially through Living Truth. Would you consider donating some of the resources God has given you to this worthwhile work? If you are seeing Living Truth for the first time, please forgive all this talk about money. We don't normally ask for money. In fact, we're careful not to. But these 3 weeks of programming are different. The money will go to the building and running of life centers here in Malawi, and we want you to have the opportunity to participate. All over Southern Africa, the Church of Jesus Christ is arising to fulfill the command to care for widows and orphans, of which there are thousands. They are rising in Malawi because of the work of Teresa and Somebody Cares, and you can help. God does not intend us to simply be passive. As you watch this program, would you prayerfully consider what God wants you to do and how you too can play an active role in this enormous battle against HIV and AIDS.
Today we are asking you to partner with us by giving a financial and prayer commitment. With your help, we will act on the biblical imperative to help orphans, widows, and the poor. The need is urgent. The quickest way to help is to call now at 1-888-269-6085 and make a donation with your credit card. Staff are standing by to receive your calls, and lines will remain open after this broadcast. You can also go online and donate at livingtruth.ca or send a check to Living Truth, P.O. Box 6100, Station B, Toronto, Ontario, M2K 2Z5. Consider investing $20, $200, $2,000, or even more to enable us to build and operate life centers in communities affected by HIV and AIDS. Your commitment does make a difference.
Well, my vision is to go beyond the borders. It's just not going to be here. I mean, the Lord said go. So I am just going and going and going. So I'm hoping by the time the center is accomplished, I can go to the north. We have 3 programs running in the north. We've got 2 in the south. So I'm just going to go wherever the Lord says. If he says go north now, I go north. If he says across the border to Zambia, I go. Because I'm going where the Lord sends me and where the need is greatest.
I hope you've learned something about AIDS and its effect on Malawi in this program. And I hope you have been challenged to participate financially in the good work that is going on with Somebody Cares. We look forward to seeing what God will do with these resources. I have confidence in this organization, and I know that the money Living Truth sends from our viewers is going to be well spent and used efficiently. Let me further encourage you to consider whether God may be calling you, not just to give financially, but to give yourself. Indeed, God may be calling some of you to come to Africa. There are volunteer opportunities for people who have willing hearts and a servant attitude. Perhaps you too can play an active role in the battle against HIV and AIDS. Next week, Living Truth returns to normal programming. But after seeing the needs of people in Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Malawi over the last 3 weeks, we can never simply return to not knowing. So once again, I urge you to invest in this work because it's a privilege for all of us to be involved in what God is doing here in Africa.